I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into a topic that has touched every corner of the globe, the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're taking a look at it through the lens of an amazing book written by a wonderful author. Her name is Barbara J. Meredith, and the name of the book is What Happened to Yesterday. As a seasoned educator and co-owner of Kids Express Learning Center and Daycare, Barbara has crafted a narrative that simplifies this complex issue for its youngest audience. The book bridges a gap, offering explanations on the sudden shift from classroom learning to homeschooling, all through the eyes of familiar pets turned characters. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today. We ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her wonderful and important book. The links are below this interview. Barbara, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me back again.
My pleasure. You're one of my favorite guests, so it's great to have you here. What Happened to Yesterday is an important book for children. Tell us a little bit about it. Give us an overview.
Well, it starts off with the definitions of what COVID-19 is. And I have my book right here.
Yeah.
So I'll start off the definitions.
So gives a
All
definition
right.
of COVID-19 and tries to break things down in a manner that children can understand and handle, right?
That's right. It starts with pandemic, essential worker, and mask, even though mask was always a term kids knew about. But they used it more for Halloween, wearing masks or dress up. But during COVID-19, you had to wear a mask to cover your nose and mouth so that you wouldn't pick up the illness of
Right.
COVID-19.
Yeah. I'd imagine running a daycare center that your business was impacted by this, right?
Well, actually, I have retired by then, but it did
Okay.
impact a lot of daycare centers
Yeah.
because people were keeping their kids home. They
Mhm.
didn't need daycare the way that they used to, except for the essential workers. They
Right.
still needed a daycare. So some of them, daycares still stayed open and they helped the best they could during the pandemic.
Yeah. I'm sure your experience in being an educator of young children was very, very important when it came to writing this book and anticipating some of the questions that children might have, right?
Yes, because I taught infants through 12th grade.
Hmm.
Was a learning center that I understood the skill levels of most children. We dealt with a lot of kids with learning disabilities,
Mhm.
so that I could bring the wording down to a skill level that all children can understand.
Absolutely. And you use pets as a medium as well. Tell us about the story. Tell us about the story itself. I know you first give the definitions of the different things like mask and COVID-19, but give the story that children will find in the book. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, it starts off with yesterday, we could go to our grandparents' house for sleepovers. Today, meaning once the COVID started, we can no longer go and visit them in their homes. We have to use Zoom, Snapchat, or just speak over the telephone.
Mhm.
And it lasted a year. So the kids during that time had a lot to learn about how to adapt,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that they could no longer go to the stores, and what they had to do for an alternative, like instead of going out shopping every day, you order your food and your clothing and your necessities online
Yeah.
and have everything delivered to the house.
Yeah. And those changes have stayed with us. I think people still shop online more. certainly people work from home more, and even kids are taking classes from home more. So they changes in
Yes, they
society
are.
that happened in 2020 have stuck with us, right?
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
It's a lot of kids, it's becoming a normal way of life for them.
Yeah.
That
And yeah.
learning from home or parents working from home. You know, things changed, but children are very good at adapting. I think the adults had a little bit more
Mm.
issues adapting than the kids did.
Exactly. Yeah, for kids, it's kind of all they know. Okay, we're not going to school next week. Particularly the very young ones, we're going to stay
Yeah.
home and learn on our laptops instead. So it was a big change, but like you said, children tend to be very pliable, very resilient, and very adaptable, which is a great thing, of course. The lessons of this book are still important to kids today, even a couple of years after the pandemic has officially ended, right? Don't you think?
I think so. Because for the children that were too young to understand exactly what was going on, now it's history.
Yeah.
So it's teaching the children that weren't even born at that during the pandemic, and the kids who are too young to understand, but the history of what everyone is talking about, because
Mm.
people are still talking about the pandemic.
Yeah.
And this will give them an insight of what life was like.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, it'll be time capsule stuff eventually. Like, remember the pandemic? Remember when we all wore masks and were afraid to touch our groceries?
Yes.
And yeah, it's a crazy time. Hopefully, it doesn't happen again in our lifetime.
I hope
Unfortunately,
not.
it feels like it might because these kind of threats are accelerating, not decelerating, that's for sure. Are you working on any other books right now?
I'm working on Daisy and Friends, Why Grandpa Forgets. It's a
Okay.
book on Alzheimer's, and it brings a family from the beginning of the disease where people slowly forget things, important, not very important things at the beginning,
Mhm.
but each stage, the more important things they keep forgetting and what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then it carries them to the transition of how the grandparent can no longer live by themselves, that they have to move in with the child's family.
Mm.
And then it brings them through to making the decision, which is very challenging and very difficult for the family to make, to have the grandparent put in um, a nursing home facility to be able to get a grandparent the proper care that they needed.
Yeah. That's an important issue also because certainly as people live longer, there seems to be more and more cases of dementia and Alzheimer's. And kids do start wondering, hey, how come grandma asked me the same question all the time, or grandpa asked me all the same questions all the time? So it's good to have them understand. How do you break it down for the children in that book so they can understand it?
Well, it starts off with the grandpa's taking the kids out for ice cream.
Hmm.
So they get in the car, and all of a sudden, grandpa forgets where the ice cream parlor is.
Hmm.
And then he kind of makes it into a game. Tell me how to get there. Do you
Hmm.
remember? And then he'll ask, can you get us home now? And so different stages like that. And then forgetting who they are, their names, and getting them all mixed up. And it's showing the challenge of what the family has to go through, because if they get their loved one with the Alzheimer's upset, then
Hmm.
they feel inferior, that it's their fault. How can I correct this when they can't?
Yeah.
So he takes it through the huge challenge, step by step, of what they will be expecting will happen.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. And it's important to be, sensitive to not only the children who are dealing with the grandparent, but the grandparent who's dealing with the trauma of not being able to remember anymore. And that can really agitate them, as you mentioned as well. So that's an important book. And the title of it's going to be what, one more time?
Daisy and Friends, Why Does Grandpa Forget?
Wonderful. Have you thought about Daisy and Friends and what happened yesterday, perhaps as like a series of videos to help kids understand these different challenges in life?
I do have videos.
Wow. Tell us about that.
Yeah, on they're I think they're traditionally called trailers, and
Okay.
they're on YouTube. You just have
Okay.
to type in my name or Daisy and Friends, What Happened to Yesterday, the Rocky's New Friend, Outside Our Window, uh, and Waiting for the School Bus.
Yeah.
The only
Wonderful.
one I don't have a trailer for is How to Stay Healthy, my first book.
Great. Well, you are a
And it
prolific writer, that's for sure. How many books do you have written now so far, published?
published a 5.
Okay. And 6, Daisy and Friends, Why Does Grandpa Forget is 6, and that's coming up.
And then the 7th one is um it's called Smokey's New Necklace,
Okay.
which transfers to her collar.
Mhm.
And then the other dog, Rocky, being portrayed in the story, is very jealous because he didn't get one. So it kind of works out to the child why they're jealous and what they should do to get over that feeling of jealousy.
Wonderful. All important life lessons for kids, all challenges that children have to face. It would seem like you're a child care expert from talking to you, but then again, you are. That's why you've written the books. Excellent.
Right.
Well, the book we've been primarily focused on today is called What Happened to Yesterday. It's a
Yes.
book that is not just a story, but a valuable resource for parents and children navigating the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. But Barbara has a total of about 7 books that are ready to go. 5 are already published, 2 are ready to go. And they all sound delightful as well and highly recommended, of course. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
You're welcome, and thank you. And I want to add that I have billboards up in Los Angeles. There's 2 of them. So if you're going down the highway, look for my billboards.
Awesome.
And now the books are in 6 stores in the United States and 7 stores in England and Ireland. So
Awesome.
they're getting around. So it'll be
Awesome. So you've got the
much.
billboards out there. You're going Hollywood on us,
Yes.
and they're in bookstores in the United States and Western Europe as well. Excellent. All great news, all well deserved, and it's an exciting time for you, no doubt. So I'm glad you shared that news with us for sure. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
My
It
pleasure.
was
And to the
my
folks at home, I'm Logan
yeah.
Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.